is our women's basketball beat writer, and he was one of – who else is on there with you?
We got Yash and
Marshall White. Yeah.
Legends right there. Legends in the making.
Marshall Tumberland White.
Marshall.
Yes.
Wow. That is
That's
one.
a hell of a name right there.
That
Yeah.
is. Well, Nathan, thanks for – yeah.
Yeah.
you're-
Is that one of the FCC?
It's good enough. Yeah, that's the thing with like the new rules now.
The government shut down. You know?
Yeah,
we
government
We
shut
could maybe
down.
say anything, but we're not going to touch that.
We're going on 23, 24 days now. Loving it. Anyway, Nathan, thanks for joining the show. Glad to have you on and talking
Absolutely.
about, well, one basketball program isn't doing too hot or isn't having the best of seasons right now. Women's basketball just got the, big win on this, was it Sunday against number 13 Tennessee. What were your thoughts going into that game? And what was it, halftime? It gets to the point where they're down by 17 finally against the Big at home. And what were your thoughts covering it?
So I will say I haven't been on the beat forever because this is my first season with the team.
Yeah.
But having been to a lot of basketball games in that stadium, I've never seen one quite like that, I have to say. I'll say they were down 17 at some point in the second quarter. I want to say there was about 5 minutes left, down 17. And Joni Taylor, head coach, on the sideline, just stomping around and very pregnant, for those of you that didn't know. So
That's what's the most impressive part. She's wearing heels and everything, walking
Yeah.
around, storming up. I mean,
Yeah.
that same amount as Crean would, but
That's what I'm saying. Taja Cole, the starting point guard, after the game, the press conference said, I was worried she was going to go into labor. It was something to behold, that game. And you guys were talking about signature wins with Crean.
Yeah.
You don't want to, dress this up too much, but that's easily the biggest win they've had this season, especially after a pretty tough non-conference start. There was high expectations coming into the year, and a string of losses against UCLA and Tech really kind of dampened things a little bit. But starting 3-0 in the SEC and still undefeated at home this season, the Lady Dogs are looking good, I got to say.
Oh, they're good at home more than anything, and they use that home court advantage more than anything else that you see. But I mean, just coming off of having seniors last year like Mackenzie Ingram, and then finally, I think this is now shaping into be someone else's team. But who is that someone that takes control? Because on that game, it was Taja Cole. She took over, and she was at 3 threes right off the bat, and the third quarter
just unconscious.
lit it up, man. It was ridiculous. And so who for you, though, as far as leaders, and who's emerging as key players on this team this year?
Well, I would say it begins and ends with Taja as far as orchestrating the offense, but somebody that the team, and Joni Taylor has said it herself, that the team cannot live without and who must play well is Kalia Robinson, whether at the 4 or the 5. She is a huge body down low, especially against the non-conference teams that don't exactly have the athletes that Georgia does. She had been dominant. I think leads. She's a big reason Georgia, up to the Tennessee game, not sure about exactly right now, Georgia led the country in blocked shots. Her, along with Jenna Stady, another huge body down low who's been coming off the bench and playing really well. I would say she's probably the biggest, not necessarily surprise of the season, but the biggest new contributor, because she didn't see a whole lot of minutes first few games, but in her little bit of time out on the court, she just balled out. And so I've asked Coach Taylor a bunch of questions about it, and so have a bunch of the other reporters. She's starting to see a lot more time with Kalia, going with a really big lineup with Connolly and Cole running things from the perimeter and just being able to dump it down low to Jenna. And
Well, they're working a system at this point, right?
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying? I mean, we were talking about, you were sitting over here on the side probably half-heartedly paying attention to as Jed was going.
More than half, but not full.
Yeah, but
I
we
usually
appreciate-
tune out Jed anyway.
Don't we all? Don't we all? Now that he's gone, now we can say that.
Poor guy.
Poor guy. He has no idea. He's going to see this on YouTube later and just be like, these guys hate me. I'm never going back on the show. Anyway, but as far as when we were talking about with the system over here, Crean's implementing it. Do you think that Joni's system is already full swing at this point?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, all of the Joni Taylor teams pride themselves first and foremost on defense, and that's been the same this season. I mean, they're the block shots are absurd because, like I said, with those two trees down there with Jenna and Kalaya, it's really tough for.
I like how you say trees because I've said that multiple times, and people.
They say it on 2K, like down there amongst the trees. So, like, I like that phrase. So, I don't know if that's Kevin Holland, whoever says that, but her defensive scheme is definitely firmly in place, and all the players have absolutely bought in. I know you get a lot of coach speak, player speak whenever you interview players, but one thing they consistently harp on is we do what Coach Taylor asks us to do, and that wins games for us. So they've definitely all bought into her philosophy for sure.
What about Donetta Johnson? She just won SEC Freshman of the Week. She seems to add a really new wrinkle to that team. I know she's not putting up the huge, gaudy numbers, but she seems to be really talented. And so just what kind of has she given them? Does she bring an added element? How is she fitting into the system so far?
Well, I must say I was a little bit surprised to see different take to see the Freshman of the Week. Not that she hasn't been playing well, because she did have two really good games, but I think only 10 combined points over those two games, albeit against the two best teams they've played so far this season, number 7 Mississippi State on the road in Stark Vegas, Mississippi. So, and
just the
Tennessee,
emphasis on that right there.
I mean, you have to. It's a special place. But anyway, she has been playing really well, and what she adds is they haven't really found someone to quite replace Q Morrison in the lineup. I forgot to mention her. Last year, her freshman year, and has been in and out of the lineup dealing with a torn meniscus that happened seriously days before the first game. So Coach Taylor has been playing around with the lineup, really trying to figure out who to fill that role with, whether it be Caitlin Hose, who got a couple of starts, Maya Caldwell, who got a few starts, and now Donetta Johnson. And the reason I'd say Donetta has been so key to this team is she has found a way to make that role work, whereas Caitlin Hose started 3 games, hasn't started since, and that was her last started game, I think, was before SEC play started, which has now been about a month. And then Maya Caldwell, who Coach Taylor literally in an interview said she's not playing well enough right now.
Yeah.
So I think what Donetta has done is not tried to do too much, because like I said, there's so many playmakers.
Well, you're a freshman, and just step in, take your role.
Step in and make open shots, and that's what she's done. So.
Yeah.
Well, the big thing that I've seen kind of with what you've mentioned, you've got the playmakers that are stepping up. You mentioned the defense team's averaging, just giving up 55 points a game, so pretty good staple of the team. But last season, again, the Georgia women put together a solid season, hosted in the NCAA tournament. Then in the second round against Duke, kind of fell flat where the game wasn't competitive, especially in the second quarter. Georgia only scored a handful of points, and I think that's something that you kind of have to be wary of if you're Coach Taylor or anybody on the team, and have that in your mind a little bit. What happened last season, and trying not to have that same finish. So down the stretch, rest of the games in the regular season, all against conference opponents, which is grueling enough as it is. How does Georgia sustain the success it's had so far, especially at home, 10-0, and then kind of advance that into the postseason? What are the keys, and mainly, what have you seen that's the biggest weakness on the team that could use some improvement?
Well, I'll say a lot there, so I'm going to unpack it a little bit. Your last question, talking about the biggest weakness. I'll say they don't have really, other than Gabby Connolly, they don't really have a consistent three-point shot. Now, granted, Taja made 3 in the third quarter against Tennessee, but she finished 3 for 8, which isn't terrible. But as a team, I want to say they went, let's see, I have it right here, 5 for 24, 20.8%, which isn't exactly what you're looking for. But other than that, like, they really are a pretty solid team, and I don't think they'll have too much trouble at home throughout the rest of the season, because their next home games are against A&M, 2 against Bama, Florida, Ole Miss.
All right, who's the biggest one out of those that you're looking?
Well, I'd say circling? Definitely their biggest game, regardless of home or away, coming up is their next one at Missouri, who's been pretty strong this season. I think are currently tied with them in the SEC, up there near the top. And then the big one, February 14th at Carolina, South Carolina. That is, I don't want to confuse them with UNC. But those 2 big games. But apart from that, I would say they should be expected to win basically every other game on their schedule from here on out. But with that being said, we saw early in the season they're not a sure thing. Again, like at Tech, that really was a game that the players themselves thought they would win, and basically everybody thought they would win and get beat by 10 points. So I think the biggest key for them, and this is something that they talked about in preseason, is Joni Taylor's mantra for this season was closing the gap, was what she said, between them and the truly elite college basketball or women's college basketball programs, if you will, like South Carolina and in historically Tennessee. They can't usually seem to get over that hump, but we'll see these upcoming games, especially at Carolina. If they can get a result there, then I see maybe hot take Elite Eight bound at least that far. So.
Yeah.